Hey everyone. Hello, good evening. It is Thursday evening at 8 o'clock, and we're doing it again. We're doing it again. We're going to be doing it for another 7 episodes. We're halfway through the series, The Death of Cliff Huxtable. At the end of Monday's episode, we were at the halfway point. So if you've been watching the first 7 episodes, 8 episodes. We've had this wonderful mix of conversations with amazing panelists, and I couldn't have asked for a better group. And tonight we're doing more of the same. Before I go into tonight's session, I just want to kind of touch base with you all. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, you can chime in live. We have a live feed in terms of the comments. So as we talk tonight, you can input your comments and we'll share them and engage with you during the broadcast. You think when you wake up in the morning, something will feel a little bit better. Something will look a little bit better. And, what we're experiencing right now is an uptick in COVID cases. And you would think, we do all that we can to again, go back to trying to flatten the curve, to lessen the number of cases. And I think in part tonight, we're talking about wellness and health. I just want to start off by saying, wear your mask. I know there's so many people who are insistent on not wearing their mask, but at the very least, and I know the mask is the very least one could do. I mean, you still have social distancing, staying at home, doing all that you can to keep yourself healthy and keep people around you healthy. But let me just say something real quick. Today's numbers really just made my mind trip a little bit. Think about this. Let me give you this food for thought. 120 to 5. 120 to 5. 120 to 5. Quote, on the basis of very soft estimates, 1 million Americans have already been infected with the virus, and that number will jump to at least 2 million or 3 million within 5 to 10 years, end quote. Dr. Anthony Fauci, The New York Times. January 14th, 1986. Dr. Fauci was talking about HIV. I'll read the quote again. On the basis of very soft estimates, 1 million Americans have already been infected with the virus, and that number will jump to at least 2 million to 3 million within 3 to 5 years. That was from 1981 to 1986. 5 years later, the CDC acknowledged the 1 millionth diagnosed American infected with HIV. That milestone happened in 1991. So from 1981 to 1991, that's the duration, 10 years it took to reach 1 million diagnosed Americans. 10 years. 10 years for HIV to get to 1 million infected, diagnosed Americans, not worldwide, Americans. And we were so afraid of HIV and the subsequent AIDS, right? And so much so that it fueled racially vibrant hate and fear, especially towards the LGBTQ community. 10 years to get to that milestone. We reached 1.2 million people ago, a month and a half ago. It took COVID-19 fewer than 5 months to reach a milestone. It took HIV 10 years to reach. And I know that you're saying, well, one is certainly harder to contract than the other, right? It's harder to contract HIV. And I understand making that argument, but recall the fear, the absolute fear and the hate and the prejudice and the concern and the confusion and the anger and the love and the care and the doubt and the precaution and the dire willingness to find a cure. Remember that. Remember that. For an infection that was more difficult to contract than COVID-19, harder to contract than COVID-19. And by that measure and by that recall, COVID-19 should have us all in our homes, wearing masks, hunkered down, because coronavirus did more in 5 months than what HIV did in a course of 10 years, 120 months to 5. So if you want to have arguments about wearing your mask, if you want to put together campaigns and challenges and burn your mask, this woman in North Carolina today, burning her mask, 120 to 5. 10 years versus 5 months. 1 million Americans infected, diagnosed, affected. The death number is just as chilling. COVID-19 has claimed 120,000 lives in 5 months. It took 11 years for HIV to claim as many Americans. 11 years to claim as many Americans. Diagnosed. And I keep saying diagnosed because we know in both cases, in both HIV and in COVID, there's so many people who are battling this, who have not gone to their doctors, who have not been properly diagnosed, who have not been properly treated. But when you think about how easy it is to contract COVID-19 and how the numbers show us how dire this is, please, at the very least, take precaution and take care of yourselves. Tonight, we're talking about wellness and we're talking about healing. And I just wanted to start off by just pleading with you to take that precaution. Okay. I am especially excited about tonight because the panel that we have are filled with the most dynamic and interesting women I know and that have worked with and have come to build my life with. And tonight we have an especially curated panel of all women. On Monday, after Monday's reading of Russell, we will have an all male panel. And so tonight and Monday's panel discussions kind of belong to each other in a sense. But we're going to get started with tonight's reading. Tonight we're reading chapter 7, Olivia. And our actors reading the roles tonight include G. Paris Johnson, Grady Johnson. She is our beloved Olivia. She's a Black feminist, an author, freelance writer for the Houston Press. She's a community contributor for Blavity.com. She is a professor of English at Prairie View A&M University and a graduate of Texas Southern University. We're excited to have her rejoin us as Olivia tonight. We also have Darryl S. Johnson. Excuse me. Sorry, Darryl. We have Darryl S. Johnson. He is our Cliff. He is currently the state sales manager for One Share Health, as well as the principal owner of Johnson Jones Benefits and former legislative consultant with more than 30 years experience in the Texas legislature and in Congress. Darryl was the executive director for the Texas Legislative Black Caucus in the Texas House of Representatives, and he has been a resident of Prairie View for 15 years with his family. And finally, we have Shaun. Derek is playing Martin for us tonight, Olivia's father and Denise's husband, as we remember from the Cosby Show. Derek is a Tennessee native, go Titans. And Derek is someone that I have known for many years and have worked with in the past in film, television, print, commercials, and he continues to do voiceover work as well. He says he's honored to be a part of this piece, and we are honored to have him as a part of this ensemble. So let's get right to it. Tonight we are reading chapter 7, Olivia. She hates September. Sitting alone in the backyard, Olivia is waiting for anyone to come and explain death to her again. The sweet, cool night is awfully deceptive. Every time a beautiful September night holds her tears. And tonight will be no different. Maybe if no one comes, no one dies. Perhaps sitting on the front porch will make a difference. Random thoughts continue to flow through Olivia's mind, along with prayers and wishes for the 3 loves who have departed from her life. her mother, Paula, her father, Martin, and now her guardian and best friend, Dr. Huxtable.
This is silly. This is so silly because there's always been someone to see me through these things. What might I say, and to whom? Go away. Don't speak to me about death. I'm cursed. Yeah. This is so silly.
Olivia chuckles and brushes off the picnic table bench with a newly fallen autumn leaf and takes a seat. She holds the leaf up to discover an ant marching solo in circles, likely looking for its trail of tribe.
You too, huh? Lost after losing your people? Yeah, me too. I gently set the leaf down on the table. I watch as the ant skitters off, zigzagging its way around the table, attempting to make his way home. I see you're lost, running in circles in a familiar, strange place. You want someone to come rescue you. Ever stop to think that if they come join you, they too will be lost? You'll have company, but you'll be lost. I'm lost. I keep losing the people who define family for me. I am lost. I'm amazed to see you come back to the leaf, Mr. Ant. It seems you have adapted wonderfully quick. You've made a playground of a foreign space, and you and I seem to have that in common, Sir Ant. You and I are kindred.
Olivia watches the ant trail away from the leaf and over the horizon of the picnic table. He is brave to journey on, wonders Olivia. Sir Ant, a minuscule creature who does not know his insignificance in this world, and in that, he is free. Insignificant is how Olivia feels right now. She is alone.
Olivia, would you like some company?
I don't know, Dr. Huxtable. I can't watch it anymore. They keep replaying it, but I can't.
I know.
Olivia is sitting on the picnic table facing the western sky, which is hazy from the setting sun and the debris of heartache. Dr. Huxtable sits on the bench next to Olivia's feet, facing the same direction. They both sit quietly and watch as the smoke and ash continue to billow up over Manhattan and blow high overhead. Olivia looks up at the cloudy mixture.
Think my dad is in there?
And
I I hate. I feel hate. I feel it in my heart.
well, I can certainly understand that feeling. But you see, Olivia, that is by definition impossible.
Impossible?
Impossible. You cannot have a heart and hate. That organ cannot create that emotion, nor can you have a heart and possess that emotion. It cannot be done. I'm a doctor. I know how these things work. Now, what you are speaking of is hurt. Hurt is real, hurt is heavy, and it is shrouded in the drapings of anger and desire to avenge. You see, but your heart cannot hate.
You gonna tell me to love my enemy?
Well, my dear, who is your enemy? Is he here?
I don't know.
Is he over there in Manhattan?
I don't know, Dr. Huxtable.
Yes. Yes, my dear. And that is the only thing of which we can be certain. We do not know. We don't know why this happened. We don't know why planes filled with people became weapons today. We do not know why two mighty buildings came down.
In the clouds, in that endless trail of cloud. Do you think he's in there?
What would you like to believe?
I would like to believe he's floating across the sky with the birds and the others. There must be so many others. They're all floating among the birds.
Is that what you would like to believe?
Yes, it's what I believe.
Then there he flies among the birds in a sweet September sky.
Dr. Huxtable?
Yes, Olivia. We must brace ourselves and conserve our heart and our energy for what we do know. We know your father loves you very much. You cannot replace that with hate. We know you are safe and have a family around you who loves you. You cannot replace that with hate. We know you have a life to live and savor. We know that. And you cannot replace the life you must fill with love with a life of hate. The two cannot coexist. Do you understand?
I understand.
You don't have to know what happens in death. Know life and live. Know love and love. You'll never do it alone.
It's okay, baby.
Daddy, I want Mommy to come back.
I know, Olivia. I know.
Wish she wouldn't have gotten sick.
I know. I know, Olivia. Me too. I wish she was still here.
No, you don't. You chose Denise. You didn't stay with Mommy.
Olivia. Baby, this isn't anyone's fault. Me staying with your mother or marrying Denise wouldn't have changed your mother's illness. Cancer doesn't work that way.
She was alone.
Olivia cries a little louder, harder, as she envisions her mother battling for her life, losing to a monster in her solitude. Her tears are endless. Her 11-year-old body shakes and heaves in her father's arms, his strong, strong arms. Hearing her daughter cry, Denise joins the Kendalls at the picnic table. Denise reaches for Olivia. Olivia scoots away from Denise and scoots closer to Martin. This hurts Denise's feelings. But Denise understands that Olivia needs her father right now. She needs care right now. She is a child who just lost her mother. Olivia is the only one that matters right now. And Martin mouths, "I'm sorry," to Denise. With full understanding, Denise mouths back, "It's okay." Denise quietly gets up and walks back into the house. Olivia, slowing her tears and her breath, calms herself and sits and looks up at her father.
You're not gonna leave me, are you?
No. No, I'm not going to leave you. As a matter of fact, I'm coming home.
You're coming home? When?
Now. I'm home, baby. I'm home.
No more Navy?
No more Navy. I'll be working here in New York. I'm home, Bugaboo.
I dive into my father's chest. Daddy catches me in midair, in flight.
It's growing so big. That was a tough catch.
In the purple September sky, we watch as a flock of swallows fly towards the south.
Do you see them? Birds?
Yeah, Daddy, I see them. Is one of them Mommy?
No, no, baby. Your mother isn't a bird. She's the wind that carries them. She's the song they sing. When you see them fly and hear them sing, She's here with you. Always here with you.
You, Daddy?
And me.
And Denise, Daddy?
Yes. And Denise.
Olivia hugs her father again. Martin looks towards the birds and whisper,
Thank you, Paula.
Olivia collects herself and withdraws from Dr. Huxtable's arms. She looks up at the purple September sky and at the trail of smoke and dust and ash and asks, Dr. Huxtable,
I know where my father is.
You do?
Yeah. He's with my mom. Together in the wind.
Is that what you believe?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Then it is so. Now, Olivia, when you are ready, and baby, not a moment before, when you are ready, come on inside. Denise will need all of us, but she will need you the most.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Huxtable.
Olivia, there's no need for thanks. You are my family. You're my granddaughter. And this is what grandfathers do. That and this.
Cliff wiggles his hands and magically pulls a quarter out of Olivia's ear.
Dr. Huxtable, I am 14. That did not come out of my ear.
Well, good. You know where it came from. And when you're done with it, you can put it back.
He flashes Olivia a broad smile, which in turn makes Olivia smile. He disappears into the kitchen through the back door. Sitting alone in the cool September night, Olivia reflects on the love she has been blessed with in her life. She gets up off her seat on the bench and climbs up onto the top of the picnic table and sits, facing the dark blue western sky. The back door quietly opens. Olivia does not hear Denise walk up behind her and around the picnic table. Denise is returning from her father's gravesite. Without sharing a word, Denise climbs up on the bench and sits next to her daughter on the tabletop. Olivia scoots closer to Denise. Denise wraps her arms around Olivia's waist. Olivia rests her head on Denise's shoulder. The two sit quietly and listen as the wind whistles through nearby chimes and to the swallows who sing all the way home. Thus concludes the reading of chapter 7, Olivia. Wow. Awesome. Thank you all so much for that awesome, amazing read. If Laura doesn't mind, I'd like to bring Derek and Darryl up so that I can say hello and thank you, and then subsequently say goodnight to these fellas. Oh, wow. Thank you, you two gentlemen, so much for participating in tonight's reading. How y'all feeling?
I feel great.
Yeah.
Good. This is our first time reading with Derek in the series. What did you think of your involvement as Martin?
Yeah, it felt good. I mean, I love the way the story unfolded. Just just having him there to reassure her. I enjoyed that dialogue between them.
Excellent. Thank you. And of course, it's always great to have Darryl back as Cliff. How you feeling tonight, sir?
I'm wonderful. I just want to first say, Martin, way to go. Dr. Johnson, tremendous. I'm honored to be in this production with you all.
Well, thank you. Thank you both. We're going to see Darryl and Derek on Monday, also in the Russell chapter, of course, Darryl will be reading Cliff Monday evening during that chapter. And then Derek will be joining us as a part of the panel that evening as well. So you have to come back and join us on Monday. But in the meantime, in between time, I'm going to thank these men and say goodnight to them because tonight's panel, I definitely have very clear intentions on how tonight and Monday evening is going to go. Tonight we have a panel of dynamic and amazing women who will talk about the discussion of the evening. We feel pain too. Black women managing pain and trauma. There's this history of Black women not being believed or not being treated equally when it comes to pain management, not just physical pain, but when seeking therapy, when seeking solace spiritually. We've seen it historically, and we'll talk about it tonight. Everything from the historical implications of Black women not having agency over their body to the present day with the likes of, say, Serena Williams having to advocate for her own medical care. And many points in between. My panelists includes the most amazing collective of women. First up, we have Ashlee Daniels, Ashlee B. Daniels, who you've already met in this series. Not only has she been a panelist for us, but she also plays the role of Rudy. So during our Rudy episodes a couple of weeks ago, we met Ashlee then. Ashlee is a lecturer in the Department of Languages and Communication at Prairie View A&M University. She is also a doctoral student in the Educational Leadership Program at the university. We are cohort members together. So she's my classmate as well as my colleague. Her area of research focuses on how to best accommodate Black women in higher education. And so I'm so thankful to have her on tonight. We also have Dr. LaShaun Dennis. Dr. Dennis is a pharmacist. She's the pharmacy supervisor and district leader for CVS Health in Atlanta. She earned her Doctor of Pharmacy from Hampton University in 2002 and was in the first class of students to be awarded that particular degree at that university. She holds a PharmD from Hampton University. Dr. Dennis is currently is currently a leader setting up COVID-19 testing sites all over the city of Atlanta. And when I tell you she eked out just enough time to join us tonight, that woman has been busy and we appreciate her being on tonight. We also have Dr. Carolyn L. Gordon. Dr. Gordon, if you watched the show Monday night, you heard me talk about Dr. Gordon as being just one of the most phenomenal women I know on planet Earth. Dr. Gordon is the Associate Professor of Mass Communication at Mississippi Valley State University and is also a nationally and internationally known Baptist minister. When asked the question, whose shoes do we aspire to fill and slide into as being a mentor, I named her as that person. And then we have Dr. TAMMY Holmes. TAMMY L Holmes is an educator teaching 20 years in the area of communication, leadership, Africana studies, and adult learning. She's currently a lecturer at Prairie View A&M University, also in the Department of Languages and Communication. Her research focuses on study abroad and documentary filmmaking. She is a licensed trainer and practitioner of restorative justice practices and is a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Dr. Holmes emphasizes the motto, good is not enough when better is possible. She's one of my colleagues and just simply one of my favorite people at Prairie View. And finally, we have Leslie M. Scott Jones. Leslie Scott Jones is a writer, director, and actor from Virginia. In fact, she resides in my hometown of Charlottesville, Virginia. The world premiere of her first play, Desire Moments, was part of the 2014 Capitol Fringe Festival. Bookends, her first full-length novel, hit the shelves Valentine's Day weekend 2016. Leslie is the artistic director of the Charlottesville Players Guild at the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center. And Leslie is the co-founder of Eugene Martin LLC, an artist development firm in Charlottesville. She's the mother of two and Mimi of two grandsons. I am thankful to have this collective of women on as our panel tonight. And Thank you and welcome, and I appreciate you all being here tonight. I think
Glad to
everyone's
be
still
here.
kind of sorting.
Hello,
There
hello.
we go.
Glad to be here.
Excellent. Let's. It's like everybody's just politely just waiting for someone else to start. Yeah, this forum, you just talk and just have at it. Let's go around the table, starting with Ashlee, and work our way around clockwise. Just kind of check in and let us all know how you're doing.
I would say that I'm doing okay. I'm doing well in processing the current events. I will say, from a Black woman's perspective, I'm tired. Tired meaning that I love my Black, but not in America. I have to think about myself being a woman, being Black, and being in America. So that dynamic. So yeah, I would say I'm doing okay overall.
Okay. Before we go to Tammy, we have a little bit of feedback or some sort of crunching on someone's mic. I just want to check that before we get any further because I want to make sure we all have, unless it's my mic, that could be true too. I think Laura's working on that right now. Let's go to Dr. Holmes and see how she's doing. How you doing, Dr. Holmes?
Well, thank you. Doing well. Every day is a good day above ground. And just, one pandemic is another, but it's always good to be here. It's always good to be supportive. I'm looking forward to this evening.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much. Hey, Dr. Gordon. How you doing?
Hello. I'm doing well. I absolutely have no complaints whatsoever. I have screamed, I have shouted, I have taken several people's names in vain, and my mental health is doing well. So I'm just glad to be here with you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. I can dig it. I can dig it. The shouting and the laughter and the ups and downs of all of it.
You got to find your way. You got to find your way through this muck and mire. And so the struggle is real, but we are stronger than the struggle.
Say a thing. See what I'm trying to say to y'all people? This is what I'm talking about. That's just regular conversations with this woman. Hey there, Dr. Dennis. How are you, ma'am?
I am doing. I would say that this time is crazy. It's been crazy for everyone. And right now I'm feeling a little mentally taxed. I feel like, I'm trying to be strong for everyone around me, and needing to take a moment just to remember to take care of self. I think that's weighing on me heavy today as I was trying to rush to do things that I'm passionate about personally, and finding myself professionally. Really spreading myself thin because there's so many people that need to be loved on, cared for, and protected at this time.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate all that you're doing, especially there in Atlanta, where I would imagine it's difficult enough anywhere in the world, but we're watching Atlanta, with unique trials right now too. So we appreciate you being here tonight. I know you had to kind of rush to get all of that done. So thank you so much. Hey there, Miss Scott Jones. Tell us how you're feeling tonight.
I'm doing a lot better than I was this morning. I spent about 3 hours this morning trying to explain to white people when to keep their mouth shut when it comes to racism. So yeah, that was my morning. After that, my day got a lot better. So I'm happy to be here in this cohort tonight.
Awesome. Well, you're in a safe space. You're in a space of just being well loved. Before we get into our conversation, I think we kind of know where we're going to fix things. So, LaShawn, if you can bring the volume down a little bit on your computer. And what else was it, Laura? I think everyone else's mic was good. I think the mic sound was good. It was just a little bit of feedback on the volume. Okay. We'll make it work. Good. Excellent. All right. So tonight, we want to talk about having agency over our bodies. And we're going to look at it from a historical perspective. And I would love to talk about it from not just a medical perspective, but as well from a spiritual and psychological perspective. I think right now what we're looking at in terms of COVID is making the choice between, do I go in and, find out my status, or do I stay home? I have to work. What happens when you are measuring economic care against medical care? And in the Black community, especially among Black women, that's not an easy sort of given. We're not always in a place of privilege to be able to say, you know what, we're just going to stay home and we're just going to hunker down. And, I think historically, Black women have had this complex sort of duty to just kind of keep going as if we're these invincible, unbreakable creatures. Mm-hmm. So let's start off first by talking about the vulnerability of Black women and how historically we've not been given that benefit.
Ooh, well, we're the caretakers, right? I remember my grandmother, both of my grandmothers, telling me that it was impolite for me to be angry. That I had to, even though I was the younger sibling, that if there were certain things to do around the house, it was my responsibility to pick up that slack from my mother. Mm-hmm. We were always taught, especially as Southern Black women, that was our space, right? We are the hearth of that home, no matter what else we had to do. Yeah. And my mother was one of those women that she was the superwoman, right? She had a 9-to-5 job, and then she was Secretary of National Council of Negro Women and Vice President of Black Women United for Action and the Rotary Club, and did political stuff, and still managed to, come home and cook dinner and, get her women's studies degree from George Mason. She was that person. She was always going, always working, always going to that next meeting. And I kind of inherited that from her. So I always have 7 balls in the air, always. There are always 5 to 7 things going on that I'm doing. And I literally have to force myself to say, you know what? I just need a day to do nothing. Can I just have a day to do nothing? Yeah. To just sit and be with myself. But it's been really, really hard. And, my spiritual practice is the only thing that has actually sat me down to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
You know what I think is really interesting, and I get excited when I talk about this because it's a part of my research. And one thing that I have to be cognizant of is self-resiliency. Black women are self-resilient, or women of color are self-resilient, not because we want to be, but because we were bred to be that way. So maybe those times we weren't allotted that because I had to take care of my little brother while my mother worked 3 jobs. Or I can't function properly or healthily or in a healthy manner in relationships because I was so driven to be independent. I'll give you an example. When I was 14 years old, my mother gave me my first bill. I had to work. This is something that is usually in a typical mother, father, 2-parent household is not heard of. But because of that, my mother has made me into this independent person. But you have to be careful with that because some Black women, I'm going to speak for myself, are so extremely independent and taking on these masculine roles that you're kind of foreshadowing or kind of overcompensating for what a man is supposed to do. That's why they will say, "Oh, Black women don't need to be researched because they're thriving and they're doing so many things. They're powerhouses in each category." But that's not true because we're hurting too.
Yeah.
So.
Okay,
Go ahead, Dr. Holmes. I know, Tammy, you got you gearing. You know what? I could see it. I could see it the moment Ashlee hit somewhere in the middle. And I said, okay, she got that double Dutch rock going on. She ready to jump in there. Yeah. Go ahead, Tammy.
No, because it was funny because I was dealing with some things about vulnerability today. That's what when you started with that, and the vulnerability. There's actually strength in vulnerability. And a lot of times that's not the perception that is given.
Mm-hmm.
There's comfort in knowing that you're not alone and sharing that story. And there's power to know that there's help if you just ask and available. I think Brene Brown did a Netflix special not too long ago about the power of vulnerability. She's at University of Houston, but well known. And she talked about with vulnerability actually comes courage. And I guess one of the things as I was thinking about this tonight was this notion of the strong Black woman. I mean, they might as well just put the S on the for the strong Black woman. And what is that? And who is she? And the strong Black woman, as if she doesn't have any types of cracks in her cape or anything that would make her to appear to be vulnerable, because she supports the family, when there's need. They support themselves when nobody else could. Perhaps this strong Black woman just keeps on keeping on in spite of mental health, in spite of physical health, whether her name is Big Mama, Mama, Grandmama, whoever's mama from down the street. This Black woman, the one, the only one, you got to go be twice as good, but you only go half as far. This notion of a strong Black woman, and a lot of times we don't take time to look at our physical health, the way we eat, the stress that we take on, unhealthy behaviors, not just in eating, but all types of habits. And then it plays a part on our mental health, because we're not supposed to do with mental health, because guess what? Mental health could be perceived that you're not strong. Mm-hmm. I go seek a therapist, or it might touch my faith. My faith says I rely upon God only, but God provided clinical solutions as well. There's some things in our culture with the strong woman that I just don't agree with, but it seems like it's carried down in generations and generations, and we're steadily holding the badge. And to my brothers, we holding the badge, but I don't even know if we know how to release it, if there were one to release it too.
Tim, if I have a ring down here,
can I jump in here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I jump in?
Please do.
Because I think part of the problem, and I've had to confront it for myself, is that we've allowed other people to dictate the narrative of how we should spend our strength. And the only way we're going to survive it is an individual come to Jesus meeting when you have made decision what is the best for you. I know for me growing up, the model for me was what it looked like to be important. And what I saw were people who, it seems the busiest they were, the more importance they were attributed. And I spent a good portion of my life being busy to prove that I was important. And I am grateful for a couple of things, a couple of books, a couple of issues, and finally realizing that if I'm going to live this life the way I want to, at the quality that I want to live it, I've got to rewrite my own narrative. And it takes more than just energy to do that. When you find it, I remember a friend asked me one time, what is it about rest that you're afraid to do? And I thought about it and I said, you're tripping. But no, the reality is rest was always considered laziness. Rest was always considered you're not doing something. And we still don't realize that rest is probably the best gift we could ever give ourselves and the strongest gift to say, I'm going to sit this out. But you got to decide to rewrite your own narrative. I learned a couple of things. I learned that I'm not as important as I think I am. I learned that when I stopped doing things, either it got done by somebody else or it wasn't that necessary in the first place.
Yeah.
I have spent enough time in funerals to understand that everybody that has died, somebody took their place and stepped over their bodies. Well, sometimes they step over the bodies, okay, And so you've got to decide. No, I'm serious. I can tell stories, but I won't because somebody might know what I'm talking about. But you got to decide what you want to spend your life, how you want to spend your life. And the question becomes, and Maya Angelou asks, if you die today, is this what you want to die doing?
Yeah,
Okay.
and
and
it's
some of the organizations, yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, in referencing Dr.
Yeah,
Maya, she wrote one of my favorite pieces of writing by her was when she wrote something called The Day Away, and that we could all walk away from our lives.
Mm-hmm.
We could forget our names for 24 hours. We can go for a walk, not show up to work, and we could literally do that for a day and be okay. Now, I mean, sure, you run the risk of certainly losing your job, but if you do, was it yours to have? That sort of attitude about it. But taking some time for yourself, unplugging, resting, and not answering the phone and not answering the call when someone rings the bell. We have not given ourselves the permission to do that. Absolutely.
So I have a question. I guess the guiding question before I get into my explanation would be, so what guide or maybe green book should we give others to teach them how to treat Black women? Because there are 3 archetypes of a Black woman. There's the mammy, there is Jezebel, and I can't remember the third one, but she's docile. So the Jezebel is over conceptualizing. She's sexual, and the mammy is the aggressive. I've been told before in a conversation that I was passionate about that I was aggressive, and I'm just having the conversation with you, sir. But I'm aggressive. So how do I tell people, this is how I want to be treated? Because of course I need to, there's change within myself before I can change others. So how can I direct you to see the light? I just need them to see the light.
Can I do it? And then I'm gonna shut up. I promise. I'll shut up after this. Let me add this one. Okay,
there's none of that. You talk as much as you want to talk.
Okay. Let me have this one. First of all, you do 2 things. You treat yourself the way you want others to treat you first. Number 2, I am not teaching anybody else how to handle me. I'm just going to direct them as they try. So when you tell me I'm aggressive or you tell me I'm assertive, and then I'm either going to buy that narrative or I'm going to rephrase the narrative. Okay? Because people will use terms to control you. And we have been bought into the good girl syndrome that there's a box we don't need to get out. Sometimes you need to be aggressive and say, yeah, I am being aggressive, and this is the reason why. Sometimes you can say back, that's your interpretation. Let me tell you what I see. Okay. But the bottom line is, I am tired of giving people permission to treat me however they want. So now there's new rules. And y'all, you have to understand, I'm on a cruise right now. I've had a lot of time to think about this, from California to a farm. But I am telling you, when you look people in the eye, I don't spend a lot of time arguing about a lot of things. And I am done explaining myself to people who don't want to understand.
Absolutely.
So you just got to decide.
Because if you
who you are and live.
That is excellent. That's an excellent response, because I was thinking, the only reason why I brought this up is because when I'm doing my research, you see surveys that have been done on universities that the number one thing, white people, white women, white men, they'll say the first thing is that a Black woman is too aggressive. She's scary, or she doesn't take direction. Well, how is that true? Did you bother asking me how my day was?
Right.
It's not true, but that's their narrative, and that's what they've been taught about you. And so consequently, that's all they know. Who was it that coined the narrative gaze? All they know is either the passive Black woman or the angry Black woman. Well, my thing is now meet Carolyn Gordon. You can decide. I'm not going to get in your box because that's the only box you have. And this is coming from teaching at TWIs, HBCUs, being in the church, I've had to fight everybody. But, the key is know who you are and understand you don't have to defend yourself all the time. They've got to reconcile with who you are. You don't always have to do that. But what I find is when you are not sure who you are, you spend way too much energy and time trying to prove it to somebody else.
That's so true.
I'm done.
No, I get that same thing all the time. I've gotten that professionally. I've gotten it in romantic relationships. Oh, you're so bossy, right? I get that. I get, oh, you're so aggressive. Oh, why do you always have to be in charge? And I'm like, well, you know what? If somebody else would do it right, I wouldn't have to be in charge. And if you have a problem with that, then I guess you got a problem with me. Get out of my way. 3 years ago, I went through a little thing and I was like, you know what? I don't care what you think. I don't care what you think. If you're important to me, then you will be around long enough to learn all of the facets of me. If you don't want to do that work to get to know who I am, then I don't need you. Walk away from me.
Yeah.
I'm not spending any time.
Yeah.
Well, especially if you don't have a problem being bossy. I mean, now I have problems with us always trying to be in charge when it ain't ours. Okay, but that's a whole nother concept. But people, you got to decide who you want to be. And if you don't mind being bossy, if you don't mind those things, my question is always from a communication standpoint, are you communicating what you're intended to communicate? And is it working for you? Now, if it's not working for you, if you've lost 10 jobs because you're bossy and that's okay with you, then, but if it's not, then you got to figure out how to do you to get what you want and where you want to be. Okay. Because people will always tell you how to act and it's only from their perspective. But always my advocation is your communication getting where you want it to be? And if that is, then walk in that. But if it's not working for you, then there are professionals who can guide you in the process that are not invested. They're not invested with trying to control you. They're not invested with trying to follow you. They're invested in helping you be what you want to be. And I think that's the permission is it's working for you. If I find that I am too aggressive and I find it as a truth, then it's okay to change it. But if it's working for you and that's what you need to do, then move on with that and accept the consequences. Understanding that however we be, there are consequences and you just got to decide that they're okay with you.
Yeah.
Words right there.
Y'all, because I just appreciate you all. You all are amazing sisters.
Sometimes I think that the appearance of what may be perceived as aggressive. But I would like to say that sometimes it's not necessarily if they feel that it's aggressive. It really is just a lot of times with Black women, persistence and perseverance. And that might not be necessarily the case for those who are trying to identify or put you in the box or put your label as aggressive. It could be that I'm persistent, I'm persevering. That has been our culture of having to be that. We didn't get the option to not be. And so the aggression could be, well, I can't just sit back and wait for the opportunity to come and find me. I've got to work for this opportunity. I've got to work twice as hard. I've got to cross the T's and dot the I's and make sure, those opportunities still go to some of that privilege that still is that blinded self that we're trying to uncover today.
Yeah. We have had a history as Black women not having access to either mental support, mental care therapy, or even having medical support. We've seen it historically from the Sarge Bartmans of the world, Sarah, the Venus Hottentot, and that Black bodies experience pain and trauma differently than our white counterparts. We've seen it historically with the maternity mortality rates and how there are more Black women dying while giving birth, and that that the medication that perhaps is offered to us when we are in pain, I'm moving towards physical pain now as we are in this pandemic and treatment is being offered, and there's the conversation of vaccines and who will be tested as we start to seek out support and even cures for this. We saw during the AIDS pandemic epidemic, where Black women, the number of Black women being contracting HIV and enduring AIDS skyrocketed. So many groups in the 90s and early 2000s. And then bringing us to present day, where we have stories of people with privilege, with resources, who are not, struggling as we think, when we think stereotypically, not us, but when our white counterparts think about Black people stereotypically, that we're poor, we don't have as many resources. You take someone like Serena Williams, who has no shortage of resource and still having to fight for her care and well-being while giving birth. Beyonce having to advocate for themselves while giving birth. LaShawn, can you talk to us a little bit about the difference in terms of, as a Black woman, approaching medicine, approaching the insistence on seeing our bodies no different than our white counterparts?
Well, before I do that, if I can, I just want to comment on just the piece about Black women being perceived as aggressive. I just want to really quickly just say that as Black women, we need to open up the stage to have more communication with each other so that we can know that we're okay in our own skin and in our own reaction to the things that happen to us as human beings. We have a right to those feelings, emotions, whatever it may be, and that how people perceive us is actually their issue. It's not a reflection of who we are as people or as a person. And that as we continue to walk in our own truth, whatever that truth we define for ourselves is, if people care enough to really know you, they will get to know who you really are as a person and learn to, do away with that perception that it's aggression. They will know the difference between passion or aggression. They'll get to learn that the more you walk in your own truth, and the more comfortable you get in walking in it. As far as in medicine, I would say, I think that we have a long way to go. I think as a pharmacist myself, in practice, in my training, there was a unspoken expectation that there would be an extra layer of scrutiny when it comes to caring for someone who's African American, evaluating, taking extra precaution to evaluate what was their true intentions for needing therapy, needing care. And I think that as a Black woman, I found myself at times having to stop myself and saying, why are you doing that? Like, as a Black woman, you know that your pain is real. You experience pain. It's not a competition. If you're in pain, these medications are here for that purpose. But I think it's so just innate in so many systems that it's hard, even as a Black woman, to stay clear of some of those perceptions. And I think that it's going to take us being conscious and waking up to it ourselves. Because if we can't see it ourselves, we certainly can't expect that other people around us would notice and be able to respond differently.
Would you say that also goes towards seeking therapy? We don't, as in the Black community, still going to see a therapist, having a therapist sit and talk with you about what's ailing you in life, whether it's a physical ailment or spiritual or mental. Mental wellness is something that we're not given the benefit of because we're believed not to have that same sort of pain. I mean, does that translate in that same lane?
I think that it absolutely translates in the same lane as for other people looking in. But I think for us as individuals, I think a lot of us, because we stand on the shoulders of such strong women and men who have paved the way for us to get to this point, I think that we feel a sense of guilt about needing anything, any help of any nature from any people, whether it's medical, whether it's just a shoulder, whether it's, I don't quite understand the best way for me to go about approaching this. I think there's just this perception amongst ourselves, at least it's my belief, that it's not okay to not be sufficient within yourself. Whatever the problem is, to be sufficient to figure out that answer within yourself, there's a lack of comfort in seeking help, period.
Any other thoughts around medicine and therapy? Yeah.
Could it be that we might need to look at generational nurturing or teachings, and maybe those in that changing? We've all seen Self-Made, correct? By Madam C.J. Walker, the little movie about her. So when I was watching it, I looked at CJ and I looked at Booker T. Washington and the way that they treated her. I was like, who raised you? But then that had me thinking, who raised you? Like, as a mother, how can I position myself where I can spiritually and mentally feed my daughter? Is there a way as a mother I can position myself not to shield my son away from the travesties of America, but to open his eyes and see that this world, there's more to this world than just you being mama's little boy. So is it possible that, yes, at an early age, I can tell my daughter that it is okay to seek help? Because my mother is a therapist. So it's always been, if there's something wrong, there's nothing wrong with going to see a psychiatrist or a therapist.
Sure.
Is it wrong to go speak to your parents? Because I think, and this is just me personally, that Black families have held a sense of authoritarianism, or maybe a sense of it's either my way or the highway, or it's I instill fear in you instead of a place of comfort or peace where you can talk to me as a mother. I'm coming to my mother or my father about this instead of I'm scared of you.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like my daughter, who turns 25 on Monday, literally her first sentence was, "I do it." Like, and that has been her entire life. She has always wanted to be the person that takes care of herself. Never wanted anybody's help. Like, once she knew how to do something, she was like, "All right, I got it. Leave me alone." And that presented a lot of problems in our relationship as she grew up, because she felt like she had to do it. And because she always did, there were times where I should have asked those questions and I didn't. And I think the change of life with her having her children in the last 2 years, all of a sudden now it's, "Mommy, help me." Right? It's that change from being the child to being the mother that has a self-awareness attached to it that you can't see when you're the daughter. Right? You can't even imagine what it's like to be the mother when you're the daughter. But as soon as you become the mother, then it's like, oh, wait, I don't have any clue of what I'm doing, and I need to talk to the person who did this for me. So I think sometimes it can come naturally. But there is a stigma about going outside the home to seek some kind of counsel. And that's just overall in the Black community. That's not just us. I still have uncles that will not go to the doctor no matter what is going on.
Yeah.
I have a great aunt who died of cancer because she knew exactly what it was, had a lump the size of a cantaloupe on her side, and hid it from everyone. Like, wore coats and stuff in the middle of summer, saying she was cold all the time, and nobody knew until she passed what was going on.
Oh, wow.
So, and she did it, one, because she knew that path. Her sisters had gone through the same thing. She knew what she didn't want. and she didn't want anybody to pity her.
Mm.
So she was like, no, I'll just keep it to myself. And when I go, I go.
Wow.
You know, when you see stuff like that in your family, how do you then find the strength to say, I can't handle this by myself?
Sure.
You don't even know what that path looks like. So, you know, with my daughter, I'm trying to show her that. I'm trying to say, oh, you know, because, you know, I've been in and out of therapy for about 4 years now. And so whenever we're talking about something, I'll just bring it up in conversation. Oh, well, you know, my therapist said blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And when I first said it, she was like, you're what? But slowly but surely, she's like, oh, you talked to him about that. Yes, I sure did. And, you know, this is the advice I got, or this is the piece of wisdom that I gained. And, you know, so it's something that we just need to start trying to change little by little.
So twice now, or actually 3 times tonight, possibly even a 4th time, I've heard the idea or the notion or the reality of speaking up when you either want help or you feel pain. Or I know at some point I've heard you all reference the seeming impossibility of speaking outside of the home, what ails us, whether it's with a therapist or with a medical doctor. So a few nights ago, I'm watching the rape of Reese Taylor. I finally decided to watch that after Shaun suggested watching it. And that documentary looks at the life and experience of Reese Taylor, who in Alabama, on her walk home from 1944, on her walk home from church, she was approached by 6 white men and violently assaulted, raped. This woman was raped and then was left to walk the rest of the way home, where afterwards her family members collectively said, you don't tell nobody. You don't tell nobody. So a few violations took place in that she did not have agency over her body as these men ravished her. She did not have agency over her story because she was silenced for a number of reasons, out of fear of retaliation, out of not wanting to put, you know, what happened to her out into the world. And those things weaken a person because suddenly you realize you don't have agency over your own voice at the very least, or your body at the very most. What is that history? When we look at the Celie character from The Color Purple, when we look at Sally Hemings, when talking about Sally Hemings and Thomas Jefferson, the sexual relationship and the violent relationship women have in this country. What is the healing that we can do now to regain agency over our bodies?
That is a chilling. This is a very loaded.
Just for a Thursday
I don't
night,
think we have time to talk about all that. That's a lot.
Yeah, you know, I just figured since we talk about, you know, and certainly in light of the nature of the work that we've been doing with the Cosby Show, we're talking about someone who possessed agency over at least 61 women's bodies using drugs. And sexually, what is the agency we have over our bodies?
I honestly think just being aware of yourself and being in it being okay that you are a feministic sexual being, like you are capable of processing your own thoughts without anyone having to think for you. Therefore, I can be in ownership of my own body without it being defiled or violated. But that's kind of interesting that you say that, because I think part of the trauma as a Black woman is that concept of being defiled. Like some of my research also talks about how Black women in their childhood, they have been sexually abused by that uncle or by that brother or something like that, and the family keeping it hush hush. So that is an interesting dynamic, and I don't think I even fully have the answer to that one.
I think
Well, for me, that it was about a 6-year process to get out of the learned behavior of damping down my emotions, not having reactions, not being able to get angry. And it got to the point where I couldn't even be joyful. Like I didn't even know how to do that because I'd spent so much time managing my emotions to make sure everybody else around me was okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it took about 6 years to get to the point where I could even differentiate between those emotions in order to process them. And it's a long, hard process, right? It's not easy.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of it was the weirdest thing. I actually felt for a long time, anytime I was joyful about something, I actually felt guilty about being happy.
Mm.
Right? Because that somehow being happy was something that wasn't supposed to be for me. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to kind of walk through it and figure it out. And you know, as I said before, especially in the past 4 years, my spiritual practice is what has gotten me through it. By returning to the first religion, by returning to Ifa, which is the very first religion of the world, where we all came from, and that has given me so much insight, right? So much strength and a practice that is so calming that I can always just go to it and center myself and be like, okay, where am I? Okay,
Yeah,
that's where I am. All right, and now let me move forward. And it also gives you a window into other things, such as like I also do Reiki. I have a Reiki master. I do Reiki treatments once a month. You know, finding those things that work for you, that give you that balance, that give you the tools to work through whatever you need to work through.
yeah, yeah.
Do you think there
Go ahead.
do you think there would have been a difference if your parents would have been more open about that topic? Because I know when I went to church, it was, if you do these things, you're going straight to hell. And it's like, oh, well, why? Like, why am I going to hell? You just going to hell.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Southern Baptist. It is a miracle. Every Sunday you heard it's a miracle that Jesus loves you and you need to repent. You know.
We lost the reverend just as soon as you said that. The reverend was going. Carolyn Gordon was like, I lost her on the screen. So hopefully we can get her back any second. It's ironic that as soon as you said that.
I just think it's weird because I think in my home, in my Black home, that was a topic that was not discussed. Yes, my mother talked to me about the birds and the bees, but not why you shouldn't do this or the consequences, the mental, physical damage that could happen to you. It wasn't. And then in church, it was, you're going to hell. I'm like, okay, well.
See, you lucky. You got the birds and the bees talk. I didn't even get that. I literally, seriously, I was handed a book and said, read this. Let me know if you have any questions.
What? You know, I think it's interesting because right around the time I was 12, 13 years old, I was living with my grandmother, and she didn't have much of interest in talking to me about the birds and the bees necessarily, but was complicated during that was it's also during the time of the beginnings of HIV and trying to negotiate what was happening. So what she did in terms of having the sex talk with me was just simply say, there's something dangerous happening out there. There's something you can catch if you're not safe. And he subscribed us to Newsweek. I'll never forget it. Only sixth grader. The subscription of Newsweek magazine, because it gave her the tool to say and communicate something she have the vocabulary for, maybe not even interest in, because sex in general was wrapped up in this religious dogma that it was something you were supposed to have until you were married or much older, and now coupled with this disease, you really can't do it. But you know, it's interesting how closely related sexual agency and religion can have to one. You recall feelings like that, Shaun?
Yes. So what I will say is that in parenting, there is no book, really no guide to tell you how to do it. So as the younger sister, you know, she had the privilege of trial and error with you. So with me, you know, she was definitely more comfortable just, what are you doing out there? And, you know, how are you feeling about it? And, you know, if you decide that this is what you are going to do you know what options you have out there to protect yourself, and so on and so forth. Mixed, you know, followed by, God doesn't want you to do it. And you should wait until, you know, you found that person before you give up, you know, that special gift. I think that in terms of, I wanted to say earlier, in terms of just really feeling comfortable to talk about what's happening to me, or to happen, what's happening with my body. I think it's rooted in first understanding that I feel passionate about me. I think if I focus more on loving myself, truly valuing myself, then if something that I don't want comes near, or, you know, it violates my temple, then I will be passionate about being willing to speak out about that. And I think that from the times that we are children, not just with our parents, but, you know, even in school, you know, there's always a backstory that you're telling yourself in your mind of whatever your perception is of whatever you're experiencing. And as a child, you're taught that, okay, now it's time for you to be serious. You need to quiet down. You need to pay attention. You're in school. You need to grow up. You need to put childish things away. You need to, you know, really be focused. I think that we are learning to not dream and to not be passionate about our own visions, our own likes, our own wants, however, you know, far-fetched or crazy they may seem. They are our own, and they're ours for a purpose. And I think that as we start to walk more and more in that truth and love ourselves, it will become easier to have that conversation, because it will just be a fact. Regardless of what we're rationalizing, it's just a true fact that in my truth, it's not okay with me that you're doing this. It's not okay with me that you're talking to me this way. It's not okay. I don't want to talk to you. I mean, all those things will become easier for me to stand in, because it's just my truth. It's not me saying that your experience is wrong, or, you know, it's less, you know, less true than mine. It's just me saying, in my truth, this is what I need to do for me right now.
Yeah. Good. Welcome back. Welcome back, Carolyn. As soon as we started tying religion to sex and sexuality, lost your signal. It was like, where'd you go? So we're happy to have back. Any yeah, so
I'm gonna jump in where And let's see what happens. You know, I'm in the country, so, but what I realize and fully understand too is the fact that we have, as a people, as women, we have a theological, let me say it this way. We have been poorly taught about our bodies. In fact, many of us have been raised in households throughout the generations where women's bodies were never taught fully to be respected and accepted. So consequently, our only affirmation of our bodies come from the catcalls, come from men, come from our friends, our peers, or our other big butt woman. You the large breasted woman, you the skinny leg woman. And so many of us have never really been taught to value our bodies in all the stages of development. You know, we don't talk about the bodies, especially from a church standpoint. The first thing that happens is once the girl starts developing, you're supposed to cover it up.
Yeah.
And so we have spent a lifetime teaching our young girls to cover up and not teaching our boys to respect the girls' bodies. And so consequently, anytime we are violated, we always think it's our fault. We wear that guilt. And so consequently, a lot of times mothers don't know how to handle it. Fathers don't know how to handle it. We as girls don't know how to handle it. And so when we grow up, we only value what people have told us to value. You know, I think all of us have spent some time hiding some part of our body because we thought it wasn't beautiful. You know, I know people who won't wear open-toed shoes because they think their toes are ugly. It took me a long time to wear my arms out because, hey, you know, you're not supposed to wear your arms out or whatever the story is. In fact, that's why Michelle Obama got such a hard, it was just treated poorly and got harsh criticism because she wore her arms out. So we've never affirmed our bodies with whatever type, whatever style, and we've got to learn how to do it and appreciate it. And then as we learn how to do it, we also teach other people how to affirm us by not buying in to their lies about us. Yeah. Everything about us. Our hair is the wrong color. Our hair is too long, it's too short. There's always something that we have to fix in order to appear to be accepted or beautiful. And so I think we've got to retrain. And I'm sad to say, but even from the church standpoint, especially from the Black church standpoint, we have not valued women. We have not treated women well. And we have not affirmed women as women. So consequently, there's always the struggle. There's always the journey. You know, grandmama may not say you cute. Grandma may say you think you too cute. Okay, you get labeled fast, you get labeled all these things, and then you got to figure out how to navigate it in the rest of the world. You know, yeah. And if you want a boy to like you, guess what?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a generation. I'm sorry. I think we're seeing a generation with the millennials and with Gen Z, who women have seemingly have her handle on possessing agents of responsibility. When you look at artists like Beyonce and Subliminals or Gen Z, like the Stallion, you know, you're looking at women who are like, I am Cardi B. I am leaning into celebrating my body and all the ways that it shows up, and unapologetically. I'm going to work, I'm going to do all the things, and will not be policed and will not be measured. So bringing us back to the Cosby Show and the chapter that we read tonight, Olivia, we saw a character who was introduced to the show series late, and what I did with her piece was connect her to 9/11, to the events of 9/11, and framing Martin as being one of the lives lost on that day. And one of the final pieces before we get to our round robin question that we end every show on, looking at cultural trauma or enduring events that creates trauma for us, for Black women. One of my favorite researchers around PTSD and physical trauma, Dr. Joy DeGruy, who also identifies PTSD as post-slavery traumatic syndrome. That within our DNA, we have built in genetically the undoing of ourselves because of slavery and the the last 400 years here in America. So when we have unrest, when we have protests, when we have things going on, there's a particular chord, there's a particular something, a chime that's completely not where we're concerned, and it just resonates deeply with us. Do you feel that? Do you feel that as we're watching, the whether it's the LA riots of '92, or the unrest or the latter part of the administration to what's happening right now, do you feel that chord struck internally when we see events in the world, cold unrest? Yes, Tammy. Yeah.
I think it's the historical trauma, and I'm glad that you brought up about the slavery, the PSTD with the slavery part. I'm familiar with that particular work, but I think at the end of the day, I've heard a lot, and talking about the church and the bodies. I think number one, we don't communicate. I just want to say something about the house. Number one, dignity and respect, and even if there are issues, being believed in the house generationally. Whatever happens, we just don't talk about it. I think communication has been an issue. It's just that we go around, we're seen, we're not heard. And part of the healing is having your story to be heard and not have to be questioned about the validity about it. There's a lot to be said. It's like about faith. But faith without works is dead. And you got to be willing to put in the work. Whatever the work is in order to affirm yourself, in order to get to the point, if it's a friend of yours or a group, that you begin to recognize the things that you might not have been given in your household or people that were close to you. But somehow there's always somewhere that we learn through observation and through others and people that are around us. But I think it goes back to the root causes, especially with the historical trauma. It's kind of like roots. It's kind of like a tree. You have the roots. The roots are underground. The roots, we don't necessarily see. They're down under. But it seems like the leaves and the branches we do see, And sometimes those leaves and the branches, whether it's seen by society as to be the aggressive person that I am, or it can be seen in the world with the criminal legal system that we're experiencing right now. It's just maybe one incident or a snapshot, but we still haven't got to the root cause or the root chakra in some areas that it's called. And until we come back to the roots and make the connection, I don't think we pay attention enough to the roots, and our leaves, it seems like it begin to die. The things that we see, these branches begin to die. But it doesn't, because it's in the root. And if you go back to the root, I think, is going to display where we see a lot of this trauma that comes forth. But in our society, what we'll do and what we might do at the house is we'll get some spray paint and we'll spray those little dead leaves and branches and make them look like, oh, it's okay. Yeah. Not okay. Yeah. And until we get to the root, until we get to what's underground, until we get to what's seen, because the effects of what we see, it's like the iceberg. It's all the things that are underneath of the stories that we don't see, the things that we're not told. And we just see the reflections of what's happening in the streets, because this has been years of rage. This has been years of trauma. This has been years of generations. This has been years that this has been going on. And now you're seeing it. And the people are like, what happened? Because you were only looking at the snapshots of the branch and the leaves.
Yeah.
You got to do the work individually and collectively, whether it be in the house, whether it be your communication,
whether it's loving yourself, finding out about your knowledge, your history of self, whether you be accountable for your sister, brother's keeper, whether you didn't have it from home, whether you go to talk therapy, because talk therapy, personally, I think is a great thing. But we got this stigma in our community that says something's wrong with me, and there's some type of shame if I go tell somebody about what's going on. But see, they're going to eventually get to some of the root. And that root might not be necessarily nice and clean. It might be ugly. But if I can get to the root, it's like the Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi said, if I can save the root of the tree, I can save the tree. Oftentimes the tree is like the family. Because just like the family, you've got the trunk, but yet there's many branches and we spread apart. Yeah. So I just want to say, got to do the work. But how many of us are willing to put the work in? Whether it be taking accountability, whether it be looking in the mirror and owning our stuff, whether it be doing the hard work, getting up and doing our practices and things that we know that we have to do, or do we just take our health issues and stuff them in the corner and say, but I don't want to know because I'm too afraid. And that's a selfish mentality because, number one, if the people we truly loved and cared about, we wouldn't be afraid. We wouldn't be selfish. We would self-persevere and take care of ourselves so we could be there for them because they love us so. I'm just talking about what I'm talking about.
About what I'm talking about. You gotta say a thing, Tammy. Okay.
So,
all right.
It's you want to ask how I'm doing today? That's how I'm doing today.
Yeah.
We don't want to go to the root. But if we can get to the root, we can save it. Mm-hmm. And too many people out here talking about, but I don't understand the white privilege, and I don't understand why you people, because you're looking at the snapshot of the tree, and some of us are helping them paint a picture like Candace Owens and Uncle Ben Carson's and everybody else. You want to get your little spray paint, and you want to spray paint people's lives and just tear them down by their character because nothing they did warranted death. Nothing.
Right.
Through. Put the work in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yep. I'm good now. I've released my grade.
And look, I held it because I didn't want to make sure you had the runway you needed to safely land.
No, because it's okay to be angry.
Yeah.
Sit with that anger. But anger can produce. It doesn't have to be bitterness, but it can produce something on the inside to make you want to go out there and do the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my process has been, how do I release some of the rage, and then eventually at some point reconcile with it.
Yeah.
So it makes me better, and not makes me better, but if I'm better, then somebody else is gonna be better, because it's the whole.
Well, and you can't keep it in. You can't keep all that stuff in because it literally will poison you from the inside.
That's why I text my therapist today and said, "Look, we
have to release."
I believe, and I think that this generation that we have now, they're more apt to say, "Look, I don't care. I'm gonna talk to somebody. I don't care. I'm gonna wear what I'm gonna wear. I'm beautiful. I don't care." They have a different mind and a different approach, and I love them. But for so many generations, we've been told to keep quiet, to hush. Part of the healing comes in, I don't have to, number one, be quiet. Why can't we talk about it? Why can't we talk about the stuff that hurts us and the stuff that brings us joy? Why can't we talk about it? Just talk about that stuff and put it on the table so we can begin to deal with it. But that's all right. We don't. We don't. We stay silent, and you suffer in the silence. Not only do you suffer, but those around you suffer, and generations to come suffer, because we learn it through observation. We learn it through what we see, we learn it through what we practice, and then we take it into our organizations that we're a part of, and we do it with one another, because you know what? That's just the way we do. Time out.
Okay, so I think what we're going to do is wind down for the evening, because as nights we can have this discussion for hours on end, and with COVID, I would be somewhere trying to get to Tammy across town and be like, girl, let's go get that whiskey and some nachos right quick and have this conversation somehow.
Yeah,
We'll do that in time.
yeah.
We'll do that in due time. Before we go, there are a couple things I want to finish off with tonight. Of course, we're going to move into our typical question that we have episode. The question is, who was your favorite Huxtable? And it's always tricky how to get into this question after the conversation we've had. But sometimes a little levity is necessary. So for Leslie, for LaShawn, and for Carolyn, because Ashlee and Tammy have answered the question in previous episodes. So if you've not seen their, you feel free to go back and watch it. You can see previous episodes at blueproductions.com. Let's ask Leslie, who's your favorite Huxtable? And if different, which one were you most like?
Absolutely, my favorite Huxtable was Denise because of her I don't care attitude, of her like, this is who I am, and whatever thing I'm into this week is what you got to deal with. Like I so admired her for that. But the times when I was actually watching the Cosby Show, I was much more like Rudy. You know, I was the cute one. I was the one that made everybody smile, always had the joke, made everybody laugh, and kind of had that like surface interaction with everybody. And kind of never really got to grow up. You know, never got to get any deeper.
Sure. Shaun, my baby sister. So what I didn't say before is that Shaun is my baby sister, and when I asked her about the question with my grandma, she referenced that. And I don't think the audience know for context that we belong to each other that way. Liz, who is your favorite Huxtable? And if there's one where you most like? Oh, she's muted. Time.
That's a tough question for me. In my truth, I probably would say that my favorite was Cliff. As a child who grew up without a father, I was intrigued by him always in the Cosby Show. Who am I most like? That's also tricky. I would say somewhere between Rudy and Claire. I definitely have an opinion about pretty much everything. And I will find a way to fit it in there if I can. So I think that's probably a little mixture between the two. And I'm in my happy place when the people around me are happy. So I am definitely an entertainer and try to bring, life to a room like Rudy, I think, would do. So that's what I would say.
Well, Shaun is quintessential Claire. Like, I'm just going to answer for you. You're Claire. You're Claire. Okay. And Carolyn. Is she frozen or am I frozen? Because I can't tell anymore. I know my signal's breaking up all episode. There you go. There she is. Oh, and I think he's muted.
Okay. With you. Am I on?
You are. Yeah.
Or did I lose you?
You're good.
Probably my favorite was Claire Huxtable because I just liked her being. I liked her feistiness. I loved her style. I love her. I love the fact that she was bilingual and how she always handled things.
Yeah.
Probably the person I most like is Cliff Huxtable You know, you just you love everybody, you doctor everybody, you try to make sense out of the situation, and somewhere along the way, you help them along the journey. So I would say I'm more like Cliff, but I just admired Claire.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, all of that seems pretty accurate from what I know of all of you. You know, the caregivers, the strong-minded, the thinkers, the leaders, absolutely without question. Before we go today, I want to make people aware of Monday's show again. We will be reading the chapter of Russell on Monday evening. And portraying the role of Russell will be Clay Christopher. Darryl Johnson will be back reading as Cliff, and Trish Silva be reading Donna, the nurse of Russell. And the topic of the night is, where do we find our role models, especially among African American men? Where do we find our role models? And the panel will include Shaun, who you met tonight, playing Martin, Harrison Guy, who is a part of Mayor Sylvester Turner, the Houston mayor, his council of advisors, especially among the LGBTQ community. Nate Sin, who is a doctoral student at Prairie View University. He's in my cohort, as well as working at the Northwest campus of the university in entrepreneurship and development. And Dr. Fred Warner. He is the endowed chair within the Low R. Green College of Education at Prairie View, and Danny Harvey, who teaches within the business department in finance at Prairie View as well. So we have a unique mix of people. All these gentlemen are brilliant. And what I'll be doing on Monday is I will be reading the narration with the actors during the scene of Russell. But what we will do after the reading and before the panel is Nate and I are going to have a discussion, just one-on-one here with you all. And then I am going to pass the baton to him. He is going to be the moderator for the evening during that particular show. If you could bring me back up. I want to talk to them just a little bit before we sign off. So Nate will be leading the panel on Monday night, and you won't want to. Before we go, I want to finish with a lawsuit that I think needs to be brought up. With a lawsuit, I'm gonna share with you what that is. The Black people of America versus the United States of America. A lawsuit. I'm going to bring a lawsuit against the United States for the trafficking of humans, the trafficking of Africans in America, and bring about a lawsuit against the United States for slavery. It needs to be, quote unquote, on the books that America committed a crime, and that the criminalization of Black Americans is a result of the enslavement and terrorism of our people. The people charged the United States with 75 million counts of human trafficking. The people retroactively bring the United States on charges of abducting African humans and illegally transporting us to the American colonies for the purpose of labor and sex. According to the National Conference of State Legislature, human trafficking is defined as control and exploitation of people for profit. As defined under U.S. federal law, victims of trafficking, including children involved in the sex trade, adults age 18 or older who are coerced or deceived into commercial sex acts, and anyone held into forced labor have broken the law. The people submit to court that by definition of human trafficking, the United States has committed a crime that knows no statute of limitations. The people submit that more than 75 million lives were abducted, controlled, and exploited for profit from 1619 to 1865. Even beyond, have been exploited for sex and for profit in the prison system, in indentured servitude, and every day until the present day. The people will present evidence to the court that for the last 400 years, Americans of African descent have been terrorized and as such are entitled to damages and reparations in the form of the listed policies. Number one, African American citizens with an outstanding student loan debt prior to December 31st, 2020 must be given a zero balance. Student loans 100% forgiven. Number two, any African American citizen who wishes to attend a public college or university built by or with the assistance of slave labor in any colony or state in the Union will be able to attend that college tuition free as a legacy grant recipient. Number three, the right to vote in perpetuity without a need for review ever. Number four, upon review of the federal and state budgets, funds will be reallocated from existing line items and redistributed to three areas of reform in Black communities, neighborhoods, and rural communities. A, education. Educators will be awarded grants to fill STEAM education, training, literacy programs. B, law enforcement. Law enforcement officers will undergo an extensive training process to protect communities they serve, and a full reformation must be considered. And C, healthcare. Due to the high number of Black Americans affected by a multitude of health issues, proper health care will be made available to African Americans at no cost. These provisions will be granted in full for the period of 250 years, beginning January 1st, the year 2021. This lawsuit should be brought about in the United States of America. And as a Black woman in this country, and the agency of my body and my mind, my voice, we will bring the suit and receive these rewards. I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. And be sure to join us on Monday as we talk fellas and read the chapter entitled Russell. Well, have a great evening.